Welcome back to the Armchair Trader podcast. And this week on the podcast, we have trading coach Alex Ong and Simon Campbell from the IX Investor Show here in London. We're going to be talking a little bit more about active trading and the FX markets and some of the practical elements involved in that. So if you're either thinking of going into more day-to-day trading, or you're interested in the FX markets, or indeed you're interested in learning a little bit more about the IX Investor Show, then this is obviously a podcast for you. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Thank you very much for having us.
I thought we'd just start getting a little bit of Alex's background first. I mean, Alex, you are someone who's actively involved in coaching traders, educating traders, but obviously you didn't start life that way. How did you get into doing this in the first place?
So I started nearly 20 years ago now. So going back to 2005, sort of just come out of university. To be honest, my family are sort of like investors and traders. So it was something that I was probably always going to end up going into, although they didn't really influence that. Unfortunately, I come from sort of like a broken home. So my father is way, way off somewhere in Asia. But my brother and I sort of, we put our heads together. We were looking for businesses and things that we could do, and decided that this was probably a good area for us to focus on, obviously with the family background. We then we did everything that the average trader probably would do, which is read a load of books. We didn't really have YouTube around at the time, so it was also buying the DVDs and things like that and trying to learn some strategies. We made a lot of horrendous mistakes. We were able, because of the nature of the markets, we were able to make a lot of money in a very short space of time initially, which is the thing that probably gave us the bug for it, if you like, that showed us that it was possible. But after those early successes, like I said, we made some horrendous mistakes. We lost quite a fair amount of money very, very quickly. And then we decided that it was something that really we needed to learn and do properly. So from that perspective, we then seeked out some mentors and things who helped us understand how the markets really were, how they really moved. And then from there, we went on to trading our own book. We then, once we gained the confidence, we traded our family's money. And then from there, we decided that we would then go ahead and start a fund. And then we ran that fund for a number of years, up until maybe 6 or 7 years ago. At which point, as I said to you earlier, went through some sort of like some personal issues, and for that had to close down the fund. And then since then, I've been coaching, and that brings us up to where we are today, more or less.
In terms of who should be looking at active trading like this, I mean, what sort of person does it suit? What sort of person doesn't it suit? I mean, what's your view on that, Alex?
I wouldn't say that there's a specific type of person that it does suit, as in, a 40-year-old man, professional IT or whatever. I don't think that it's, from that perspective, you could say it suits one particular person. I'd say that it suits a person that is looking for a little bit more freedom, that is able to control the way they think about things. Everybody thinks that they can. The reality is that the vast majority of people can't. But they also have to be fairly committed to the process, because it's not easy. It's simple. Trading is a simple thing. I could teach you the mechanics of a strategy very, very quickly, but the reality is being profitable isn't something you can do overnight, and it's a constant evolution. And it's not, and the person that wants to get into trading has to be comfortable with the fact that you're probably never going to be completely confident in your ability to make money from the markets. I remember speaking to my mentor way, way, way back when, saying, when do you get to the point where you just know that you wake up every day and you're going to be profitable every day? And he said, the truth is that you probably will never get to that point. And this guy had been trading for some of the big investment banks for over 30 years. And he was saying that to me back when I first started. Now, today, fast forward 20 years on, and I can say the same thing. It's like, I'm confident in my ability to work out the way the markets are going to move. But in terms of like 100% confident, I know that I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning and make money. That just doesn't exist. We don't control the markets. And so it's impossible to get to that point where, like, you have a regular paycheck in a job where you're going to wake up, you're going to do your 8 hours or 10 hours or whatever, and you're going to get paid at the end of it. The markets aren't like that. So if you've got a little bit more of an entrepreneurial spirit, you might find that you're a little bit more comfortable with the uncertainty. So coming back to your original question in terms of who does this suit, it probably suits people who, obviously they want something more, they want that freedom, but at the same time, they're comfortable with the uncertainty that trading the financial markets is going to bring.
And Simon, I mean, Alex mentioned there having a mentor. I mean, from your experience, how important is it that people who are thinking about getting more involved in actively trading financial markets should have some level of education or indeed some kind of mentor?
Yeah, I think it's very important. I mean, this is why we do the events that we do, and people like Alex that I've come to know over the years of doing all the training and the webinars and the seminars are the people that actually do sort of practice what they preach, and that's one of my roles is to sift out the great mentors and educators that people can get to know, not necessarily having to pay lots of money for training, but just to get to know, to follow them on social media, to see how they approach the markets. And just touching on what Alex said there about the question of active trading, who does it suit? If I could just add a little bit to that, because there is so many different sides of trading. And I think no matter where you come from, whether you're, as Alex said, you're the sort of stereotype, I think, is the sort of middle-aged man approaching the markets. But equally, there is room in trading for young people at university, women who just started families and can't get out to work full time, all different sorts of lifestyles. It's a question, I think, of matching the trading style to your lifestyle. That is one of the key things that we try to do at these shows, is to try to introduce you to the wide variety of strategies, if you like, is the best term for them, for someone that wants to trade full time, part time, once a week, even looking at seasonal trade. There's all sorts of different flavors, if you like. But it is important for people to get to know people that already do it. I think that's the best way to learn, is to see people that are already doing it, already making money from it, and can help you dispel some of the myths. But I think most important is not to go onto Twitter and start following the first person you see sitting with a red Ferrari and a laptop, because often not, they're not telling you the full story of their trading story.
Yeah, I mean, we are in that environment, which I think really kicked off. I mean, it was there already, but in 2020 during COVID, we suddenly saw a lot of so-called trading experts manifesting themselves and explaining how they'd made millions of dollars trading, and in fact, a lot of these people don't really seem to know what they're doing.
Perhaps the worst thing that happened, and this is what a lot of people experienced in COVID, was that they started trading in what's called a bull market, where pretty much everything was going up. So your first few weeks or months of trading was fantastic, and you saw great returns. You immediately thought that you were Gordon Gekko reborn from Wall Street, and it was all going to carry on like that. Of course, we know the markets are not that easy. Things don't go on forever. Trends do change. Prices go down as well as up. So it's important to sort of go in with your eyes open when you start trading. Prepare for some losses, but obviously look to sort of learn how to win more times than you lose.
And Alex, you're from your perspective as someone who's worked with traders and educated people, what would you say are the most common mistakes that you find retail traders making?
Um, so there's a number. One is not really understanding the markets that they're trading. So, for example, you were talking about during the COVID years and being in a bull market, as far as the equity markets were concerned, which they were easy. It was a one-way play. And what I find is there's a lot of strategies that have been developed for the equities markets where it's more of a sort of like a buy and hold mentality, or there's a potential for that. And then they come and they they try and apply it to more cyclical markets like the FX markets or the commodity markets, and it just doesn't work that way. So understanding the markets that you trade is something that you need to, and I think most people don't do that. The other thing I think is people don't have a strategy that one works for them from a psychological perspective, but also from their sort of like just their scheduling. So you get people that might want to day trade, but they don't have 8 hours a day to be able to sit in front of their screens. And with the best will in the world, if you can't do that, you may want to be a day trader, but you just that's not open to you at that particular time, in which case you need to look at something that's a little bit longer term. So you really need to mesh obviously an understanding with the markets in addition to what is it that you want to trade, but also what can you trade, what sort of approach can you trade. And then obviously the really really big one is that people come to the markets assuming that they're going to is going to solve their financial problems, that they're going to be able to take £1,000 account and turn it into £100,000, which, going back to the Twitter and the Instagram scenario talking about earlier with the people with Ferraris, I think that's almost, if you see a picture like that, that's somebody to steer clear of. Because I can tell you that, in my 20 years of trading, I've had good months, I've had bad months, I've had, great years, but I've never once been able to sort of 100x an account in 1 or 2 months. And I've never seen anybody that's been able to do that. If you're shooting for 5 to 10% a month, then you're willing to accept that there are going to be opportunities at times where you might be able to take a bigger position and make slightly more than that. That's fantastic. But it's not going to solve your financial problems tomorrow. And a lot of people coming to the markets, they're not coming to it planning and saying, okay, I'm looking at this as something that I hope to be proficient at in the next 2 to 3 years. So I'm going to put in 2 to 3 years worth of work to get to that point. They want to get into the markets and they want to make money tomorrow. They want to, pay, supplement their income, replace their income within the next 3 months, which is just kind of a little bit unrealistic.
You are someone who's obviously very experienced in trading specifically Forex markets. I used to work for an FX broker, and there was a feeling there. I mean, we were a broker on more than just the FX front, but there was a feeling there that a lot of investors were rushing into FX and getting burned quickly because of the volatility and the leverage there, rather than just starting with, say, FTSE 100 index CFD or something like that. What are the sort of risks that face people going into FX markets? Should they be the kind of markets early stage traders participate in, or should they be learning on something else?
Well, I would say that there are a few different sides to this. So first of all, the FX markets, there's a really low barrier to entry. So you can open a brokerage account for $100 or £100 and start trading. So from that perspective, I think that's where the allure is. It almost seems like it's a simpler market to trade, which isn't the complete truth. So from that perspective, I would say that it's a great market to go into and just understand the mechanics of trading. It's not necessarily the best market to start with. Although having said that, that there isn't necessarily one market. You need to understand every market that you're trading. When you said earlier about I primarily focus on the currency markets, I focus on the markets that have the sort of like the path of least resistance in terms of making money. I listened to Jim Rogers. I don't know if you know who he is. He ran the quantum fund with George Soros a number of years ago. They were the guys that broke the Bank of England. And I was at this conference and he was talking, and he said that today he doesn't take a trade or an investment unless it's as easy as a $100 bill sat in the middle of the floor, and all he has to do is stand up, walk 5 paces and pick it up off the floor. And that's sort of the way that I approach my trading and investing. So the last 2 years, trading the currency markets has been easy. Right, we've had the central banks hiking interest rates, and when central banks hiking interest rates, then there's a one-way play. You know which way a currency is going to go, so it's easy. Now you're coming to a time where it might be a little bit more difficult over the next 6 months as we come to the end of these rate hike cycles, and they're going to pause, and then it's going to be, well, which central bank is going to cut rates initially, but then there'll still be the focus on the data. So where is inflation going to be? How's the economy holding up? So that's going to make it a more difficult market to trade. Not impossible, but you would need to change your strategy accordingly from being a trend following buy into momentum to perhaps looking to, sell the rallies and sell into resistance and things like that. But then what you might say is, well, potentially there's going to be better opportunities in some commodities or the equity markets. Although I would say that the way that monetary policy is at the moment, I wouldn't necessarily go into the equity markets just yet. But when the Federal Reserve or when the central bank start to cut interest rates, obviously that's good for equity. So that's when they become a one-way play. And that's when you move over to those markets and you start to invest and trade in those markets because they're the easier ones. That, you're not going to be stopped out as much. You're going to get more directional plays. So, that's how I approach my trading. So anybody that's new to trading, I'd say that yeah, if you want a low barrier to entry, absolutely look at the currency markets. But there isn't necessarily one particular market that's going to be best. I would say, even though technical analysis is extremely important to help you identify entries and exits, and a framework, a strategy is generally built around technical analysis. Having an understanding of how the fundamentals work and how they drive different markets is probably going to help you more than anything in the long run, because Warren Buffett says that it's not necessarily how fast you can paddle; it's the stream that your boat is in. So you could be the best trader in the world in the FX markets. If the market condition isn't right for your trading style, you're not going to make money, or it's going to be difficult.
And there's a question I had for both of you, really, and I'll start with Simon. When people are, we've already talked about people getting started in trading, and they may already have a 9 to 5 job. But a lot of traders we speak to, their ambition is one day I want to make this my life. I want to go and live in the Bahamas. I want to leave my 9 to 5 grind, and I see this as the way to do that. Best not to take all your life savings and invest it in a trading account and just hope you'll start making that money in 6 months. But I mean, what's your advice to people who are either trading part-time or just thinking about getting into it and would like to make it a full-time deal?
Well, it is possible, but it's not achievable for many people, depending on exactly these points that you said, depending on their own lifestyle. I do spend quite a bit of time in Spain, and I do know a lot of traders who live that dream of trading full time, living in a sunny climate. So it is possible to do it. So it's not to lose sight of that. But I think having realistic expectations is probably the best thing for most people to go into this world with. And at risk of repeating myself before, it should be treated like a small side business whereby you will understand how much money you have to start, how much capital you would start to take this business, in terms of how much capital can you afford to lose if it was all to go south very quickly. And that's always a risk. So people need to understand their own circumstances. A little bit like doing a know your customer compliance check for a financial company. Do that on yourself. Understand your own financial position. What sort of money have you got committed for future, whether it be school fees, university, mortgage. You don't really want to risk that money. I've always confused about this idea that people have spare money. I'm not sure many people understand what spare money is, but that idea of money that you can afford to lose is important to bear in mind. And once you do that, then you can start to plan a strategy to go forward. You can understand how much that pot is. You're going to be able to grow that using a very high risk strategy or a lower risk conservative strategy over the longer term. This is a little bit just what I touched on before, is that everybody has a slightly different ambition that they want to get out of their trading, and everybody has a different ability in terms of the time and the willingness to focus on it, whether it's the extreme level of day trader who is happy to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and spend most of the day looking at the screens of the charts and the minute by minute ticks, to the more conservative person that wants to put on what we would call a swing trade, which is maybe a trade maybe that's going to go for 3 or 5 days and just check the markets once a day on their telephone. So there's all sorts of different flavors, but that would be my advice. Would be always to be looking to understand your own financial position and understanding what targets, what your ambition would be to get out of it. And this is what we're doing at the show. This is why we're we're doing this event in November in London. I bring together lots of great traders like Alex. We put together a range of seminars, a networking lunch where people can actually sit down with the mentors and ask them questions, ask them how they got started. You can even ask the people that are at the show beside you, saying, have you started trading yet or not? What's your story been? And this is a great source of information. And from all this activity and speaking to other people that are already doing it, you can start to build your own story. Some people might even think, this is not for me. I want to engage the help of a financial advisor and just put my hard-earned money into a fund that's professionally managed. And that's a good result actually that comes out from many people, because it doesn't suit every single person. But for those that do want to take a more active uh, ability to control their finances and to select the stocks and select the markets they trade, then events like this are a great way of doing it, engaging as much as you can with those who have done it before. I think that's the key thing that I would recommend people to do. Find out as much as you can beforehand. Uh, do use demo accounts as well, because you need to see how it works before you put money on the line. But education is, I think, the rule, and it never stops. You keep on educating. The markets change, global events change, as we know, day by day, hour by hour, it seems, and they can have an impact on the money. So you need to keep educating yourself and keeping yourself interested in what's happening.
And Alex, any tips you got there for people thinking about
Yeah,
this?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say that it is possible. I think trading can be for anyone. It's not necessarily for everyone. In terms of the way that you go about it, I would say that if you don't focus on trying to make unrealistic, profits in your account month on month, because that's never going to happen. If it happens one month, you'll blow up the next month, and then you'll just have a whole host of other issues. If you can get to a point where you say, I'm going to take the next 6 months or the next year and I'm going to work on trying to, just be profitable month after month on average, you'll get some down months where you can do, just something conservative, 5% a month or 5 to 10% a month, which sounds like it's not a lot. And if you're somebody that's listening to this and you have $1,000 in your account, you'll be like, well, 5 to 10% a month, I'm not going to be able to do anything with that ever. But you just stay with me for a second. If you can do 5 to 10% a month, then you will find that capital will find its way to you, whether that be through, these funded trader programs that you have available today. There was a few issues with that a month or so ago with, I think it was My Forex Funds, but there are some very, very good ones out there. I work with a company called Tradiac at the moment. But in addition to that, even if you don't go down that route, where my brother and I, what we did is obviously we learned to make returns. And once you can do 5 to 10% a month and you can demonstrate that, even less than that, if you could do 2 to 3% a month, for example, then you put yourself out there, you'll be able to find, other pools of capital. People will give you their capital to trade on their behalf, because you're not going to get that in a bank. Even if inflation goes way, way up, you're still not going to get to a point where you're making 30, 40% return on your money year on year. So if you can learn the skill of trading, then it opens up so many other doors. It doesn't just have to be what you have in your bank account right now. That's going to be what you're trading with in a year or two's time. And I think far too many people, when they start trading, that's their idea. They're like, I have this nest egg. I've got, £3,000, for example. By the end of the year, I want to be at a point where, that £3,000 is replacing my income. And my current income is, I don't know, £5,000. So then you've got to think to yourself, well, realistically, to get to that point, you'd need to turn between now and the end of the year, you need to turn that £3,000 into £50,000, which is never going to happen. Not if you're doing it in a conservative, responsible way. And it's never going to be sustainable. But if you just focus on saying, well, this is my pot of money for the moment, but that doesn't have to be it. There are going to be other ways that I can attract capital to me, whether it be family money, whether it be setting up your own fund, whether it be going for, the funded trader program route or things like that. You'll be amazed at the opportunities that open up to you once you can just consistently make money. So don't focus on the monetary value that you're doing in your account, but focus on learning the skill. And if you learn the skill, I promise you, you will find a way to do this full time within, a shorter space of time than, many things possible, but maybe a little bit longer than a lot of you hope is possible.
Well, thanks very much indeed, Alex. And just to finish off with, Alex is going to be at the IX show. Simon, can you give us a little bit more information on that? Where and when it's happening, and where people can actually hear from Alex in person?
Absolutely, it's a fantastic event, and really delighted that Alex is making the time to come along and present a workshop as part of the day's activities. Alex will be doing a 4-hour masterclass, so this is a real chance to deep dive into the way that he's making money through trading. Alex, I'll let you maybe speak a little bit more about that in a second or two, but in addition to that, you're going to find a whole range of interesting speakers presenting seminars, exhibitors with booths answering your questions, some panel discussions on the markets, a traders networking lunch, all sorts of things. The live trading room we have, sponsored by Tradiac, in fact, the funded traders, they're going to be hosting live trading throughout the whole day. So you can go into a room where you'll see 3 traders actively in the markets, trading the live markets and telling you what they're doing and telling you why they're doing it. So you can see on the screen what trades they're looking at, what charts, what their sort of signals are for them to get in and out the markets. So it's really it's a 1-day festival of trading education aimed at you and I, retail private investors who are maybe not trading or maybe just taking the first steps in trading, wanting to find out more about how you get started. You're going to meet the brokers, you're going to meet the platform providers, the signal systems, all the tools of the trade there that you would need. You would find it there. And it's happening at the Grand Connaught Rooms, which is a lovely venue just off Covent Garden, central London. And it's Friday, the 24th of November. And it's open all day from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And you can get a free ticket if you register in advance at the ixtradershow.com.
Fantastic. And Alex, can you just, before we close, can you just shed a bit more light on what you'll be doing there at the show?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the morning, as Simon mentioned, I'm going to be doing a masterclass. It's 4 hours long. So, we don't have days and days to spend together for me to teach you everything about the market. But what I'm going to try and do is at least teach you my trading framework so that you understand what it is that I do, how I approach the markets every day, how I identify trading opportunities. And as I sort of spoke about earlier, how you decide which markets you need to be in, because that's really, really important. It doesn't matter what strategy you have. If you're not in the right market at the right time, you're not going to make money. So we're going to spend a lot of time doing that. And then, of course, in the afternoon, I'll be doing some other talks for Simon and be in and around the place. So if you want to come and speak to me and just talk about the markets, talk about your own trading, then please come and find me. I look forward to speaking to you all there.
Fantastic. Well, that's great. It sounds like it's going to be a really awesome day. And also, guys, thank you very much for your time today on the podcast.
No, thank you so much for having us. It's been a really good experience. Thank you.
Many thanks again. Yeah, and thank you, Armchair Trader, for the support that you give us for the show. So much appreciated.
You've been listening to the Armchair Trader podcast. Make sure you visit our website, www.thearmchairtrader.com, for your daily dose of financial markets news and sign up to our free newsletter there.